Okay, hello everyone, welcome back. Welcome to the corner of my house where my books are currently housed. You see on this side, you'll see mainly fiction, which is like literary fiction, which is mainly my husband's books. On this side is the fantasy, which is kind of my wheelhouse and where I've been finding myself enjoying really reading. If you see some books that are missing, it is because I am currently working on reading them. So as Harry Potter is not, we're missing the 5th book here, it's because I'm reading it. And Malice, well, I moved it. Finally read Malice, and when I tell you guys, so much of life has happened for me. Like, while I've been reading this book, I had just moved here in September and moved across the country with my husband, and now here we are. And I started reading this book September 17th, finished it December 2nd. That's quite a long time for me, and this book is, look up the word count for you guys, because I care more about word count than I do page count, only because you can have a book that's 400 pages, but it can be shorter than a 600, wait, what? It can be longer than a 600 page book, depending on like font size and things like that. So it's just something that I like to log for myself personally, just to say, oh, okay, this is how long this book is, and this is how long it took me to read it realistically. And I haven't been reading anything else in the current times other than One Piece, Malice by Gwynne. Word count. It is around 210,000 words, which is a significant, and it said give or take, it's a significant sized book. And the page count, if you're wondering, is 630 pages. Now, let's get into what is Malice? What is it about? And other than the cover is cool, and if you have done any research on the author, Gwynne is really cool, and that is kind of part of the reason that I've been led to read this book, is because I have heard Gwynne speak about his writing process and his kids and his family, and I've seen him interact with his kids and his family. And I saw a recent video where he was talking about his new book that he published, and here I am, not even talking about Malice, but talking about the author. And he was talking about his struggles with his daughter passing away, and I just really felt for him and his family, and he just portrayed himself to be such a good man and such a good person. And the things that he has said, and the fact that this book is written for his children, really just spoke volumes to me. This book wasn't even supposed to be published. Gwynne wrote this book for his children to read, and his family said, this is way too good. You need to publish this, Dad. Like, this is too good to just let it be between us. You have to show the world your skill. I was sold on it at that point, and knowing it's high epic fantasy, that's all I needed to know. So let's talk about what is Malice about without any spoilers, and this whole thing will be spoiler free. If you want to have a spoiler discussion, please talk to me in the comments and let me know. And I think I want to do live streams for spoiler discussions. I think that would be really interesting and really fun, and just a great way for me to be able to interact with the community, other than just, it's still through a screen, but other than just typing. You follow multiple different points of view, each one different in its own way, and how they're experiencing the world that Gwynne has created. And as prophecies are starting to come to light about a giant war, about the God War, I don't know why I said giant war, but about the God War, where the two gods that are around, it's some sort of kind of not mythological, but religious history within the book that talks about a god who kind of created another higher being, and they had been in disagreements with each other, and then there's supposed to be one god had left, supposedly. Now you're seeing humans that have the majority of the lands, and you have the giants who are kind of within their own section, in their own corner, and they are definitely at odds with each other, the giants and the humans, and you're experiencing all of those things, plus the prophecies coming to light, people just going their kind of everyday lives within this, I guess you could call it, medieval type of time frame. You're following a younger boy, you're following a couple of older to middle-aged men, like within the point of view chapters. You're following a young girl, you're following, I think that's it. Oh, you're following an older man as well. He's not old necessarily, but he's older. And you're seeing these battles of good versus evil and these morals, and you're seeing a lot of politicking within the book, and you're basically for the whole first book, figuring out who is good, who is bad, where will this place stand in the war? Who are they going to be against? Who are they going to stand with? Which, how higher power are they going to stand with? There are really great descriptions in this book. I think that the writing is really good. I think there were times where I was taken out of the story because there would be like a couple one-liners that were a bit like, oh, I knew you would say that, or that's so cliche. There were some cliche lines, but this is a first fantasy book, and I could probably count those on one hand, the times where I was taken out, and that's, 4 or 5 times. That's not a big deal at all. That really, I don't want it to let it affect my rating that much, but I feel like with that being said, I don't know if it can exactly be, oh my gosh, this is a 5-star book, but at the same time, I have been thinking about this since I have read it, and by the way, I'm sorry this video is out later than it's supposed to be because I have not been doing so well physically. So, been struggling with that there anyways. So what I really like is that you are experiencing through this the love of husband and wife and the love that they have for their children, and then the children, siblings bickering with each other, and you have first kind of crushes, maybe first love if you want to go that far, but I would probably say first crushes, and for some others in the story, their first love, and you're experiencing the horror of battle and the horror of not being in an alliance with someone that you thought you would be in an alliance with, and not knowing the people who are around you who could be absolutely detrimental to your kingdom and to your life within the book, of course. And I think that one of the things that I love about fantasy so much is that you can experience real world things within the fantasy book, but you just have so much more going on to focus on at the same time. I feel like I definitely do not go out and search for literary fictions that are going to make me cry, because I know that they're very emotional subjects, and I would like to get to that point, but I know that my mental health and the state that it's at right now, I cannot do that. But if I'm reading a book like this and I do have those elements of those very emotional moments and very serious topics that are being talked about within the books, and this doesn't cover every serious topic, I would say that if you want to talk about like trigger warnings or something like that, of course there's tragedy, and there is of like people dying within the book and murder and things like that, and there's also, it is a bit gory if you read it and call it gory. I'm not sure if there's a different word when you're talking about, but there is violence in it. It is called Malice, and there is a weapon on the front of the book, and there's also animals within the book, and some of that, the way that it's worded and some of the things that happen in the book, it had me tearing up. And the tragic things, there's my cat, the tragic things that happen in this book. I'm not a person that is emotionally super invested in characters that I haven't known for a long time, meaning I have only cried for Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, and the first instance was Lord of the Rings, and it was the end of the book, which was a bittersweet kind of cry, and it was only because I grew up on the movie, so I kind of knew the characters since I was a young child. And the same thing with Harry Potter, but it was a happy cry when I was reading the first book and something happens and it makes me really happy, and it just made me cry, and I felt really connected to that character and those characters. And I was already feeling those type of connections within Malice, just one book over the course of 2 months, which took me a very long time, obviously, but I feel like these characters are fully fleshed out, and you really do start to care for them and care for what is going on in their life, and it ends on a note where you just want to jump into Valor, which I have back there, and thankfully I think my husband had bought it for me he bought it for me for my birthday this year, and I will be doing a video on all the books that I have acquired this year. I didn't buy a lot, but I did acquire quite a bit, so I will also be talking about that later this month. So Malice, to give me those sort of emotional feelings within 210,000 words, within these 630 pages, and just be a first book, and also leave me wondering what's going to happen next. I need to pick up the next book. That's the exact feeling that you want from a first book. I feel like it gave everything that it needed to give. High epic fantasy. The battles were great. I think that things were sort of hard to follow, and this book took me so long to read, and I'm gonna tell you why this book took me so long to read, and it's because I've had so many things going on in my life, but in the book, I'm not used to European slang, I guess, or older English. And I feel like there were so many terms for things, just everyday things within the time period that it's in, that I had no idea what the heck it was. It could have been plot of land and something within the plot of land, and there's a vocabulary word for the type of geography that it has, and I'm like, I have no idea what that is. I have no idea what a baron is. I didn't know that was a young person before they hit their adulthood. There were just words like that I had no idea what it meant. Cairn was another one, I think, and that was something, some sort of burial site sort of thing, and I didn't know what that meant either, or some sort of tomb. It's something similar to that. I also had no idea about that. So that was definitely a me thing, and I know that this book taking a long time was a me thing. I don't want to call it slow because I don't feel like it was slow. I feel like it was more medium paced as a book in general, but I read it slower because I really did want to latch on and get to know the characters and learn their names, because it is a little bit of a learning curve, and I felt the same way about George R. R. Martin's A Game of Thrones because I've only read the first book. Now I will be getting into the second book soon, hopefully this month, but I felt very much that way in this book. But the chapters are nice and short, and you're flipping in between point of views quite often, so you do get to know the characters probably quicker than I did if you're reading faster than I did. But it's just, again, so many things going on. School, it's literally the last week of school for me right now, and I had just finished reading this book, and I have also been obsessed with Call of Duty Black Ops 6, so do with that what you will, but just know I've been obsessed with Call of Duty, and I've been doing that instead of literally anything else that I could be doing with my time and with my life. And have I been up until midnight playing the game instead of reading or recording this video or sleeping so I can get ready and do stuff for school the next day? Yes, I have. But I enjoyed myself so much with this book, and I really wanted to sit on this rating for a while because I have had no idea what to rate this book because I've enjoyed it so much, and yet it took me so long to read it. And I say so long, I know 2 months is not, relatively it is not a long time, but for my own reading speed, I know that I can read this much faster than that if I dedicate more time and effort into reading than I could, and if I stopped getting migraines so often. But I feel like I might settle at a 4.75. It's so hard for it to be, it's like a 4.75 to a 5-star. It is so close. And I think that this book hit all the marks that it needed to, and that I have heard that this is the quote unquote worst book in the series, and worst being if this one is a 4.75, the rest of them are even better than that. What more could you ask for? Because I really want to say that maybe this is a 5-star, but it may not just have that right 5-star feeling. But really, once I got to the end of this book, the last 200 pages probably to 150 pages, I was really getting those 5-star feelings. But for the rest of the book, I wasn't really getting those 5-star feelings yet. And I think that's just because I had my own personal learning curve with this book. Also, I'm sorry about the shadow right here, but I enjoyed my time. Goodness, how many times am I gonna say that? I don't know. What else do I have to say about this freaking book? I don't know. It was a great time. Great fantasy. I love the point of views. The characters feel real. When you're reading from a young girl's point of view, it feels like a young girl. It doesn't feel like an older man writing this book. And the same thing with the young boy. It really seems like a younger boy and the younger boy problems. And that was something too that I thought could have been a little bit better written possibly, was that there were 3 guys written in the book, and I'm saying that to be more ambiguous, who had similar issues of bullying, whether it be from friends or from family. And I felt like maybe there could have been different sorts of events that, or someone being in the shadow of someone else, and I felt like it was a little bit redundant, but at the same time, John Gwynne made it work in his story because he pulled all those plot lines together. So at the same time, I can't really say that I don't like it, but I feel like that was one thing that did take me out for a second when I was like less than halfway through, and I'm thinking these 3 males are dealing with very similar kind of backstories and backgrounds. How is he going to work this out to where it's not going to feel samey? But he did work it out to where they very much felt like their own people dealing with their own problems. And there is something to be said about this is something that was happening back then, because let's say during this medieval type time period, there wasn't much to do. So for people to bully each other I mean, fighting is gonna happen, so I don't know. But yeah, I do recommend you read this. Who would I recommend this to? I would recommend this to someone who has read a couple of fantasies, and they don't have to be super hard or difficult fantasies, but if you're wanting to get into a little bit more difficult when it comes to more point of views, a longer story with more places, this is definitely complex when it comes to like the map and remembering all the different towns that are in it. Not as bad as Westeros with A Song of Ice and Fire, but definitely kind of up there. I would say that you should read this and that it may help you when you go to read A Song of Ice and Fire, or if you go to read A Song of Ice and Fire or some other higher fantasies that you may feel a little bit scared of or timid by or whatever. I think that this may help bridge that gap, and I feel like it is a good little challenge. I felt like it was a good little challenge for me, and as you guys know, if you guys have watched my videos, you know that I love reading because wow, voice crack? Who am I? I love reading and I love challenging myself with books as well, and being able to learn more things, learn more words, like increase my English, my language, because I'm also in school for Spanish, so increase my English will only increase my Spanish. So all that to say, 4.75, almost a 5. Loved this book. It's awesome, and I recommend it to someone who is looking for a high epic fantasy. If you haven't tried high epic fantasy before, I think this is a good place to start, but I also would say that it depends on what you really want from your story. And if you want multiple point of views, and if you want some heart-wrenching story, and you want good battle scenes where there is definitely a good amount of violence, and I don't think it's necessarily too much, but I don't really have a good gauge, and I'm not going to tell you this book is too much for you, this book is not enough for you, sort of thing. So please let me know if you have read this. Please let me know if you're interested in reading it now. And oh my gosh, I forgot to say the giants sound so cool. There's so many good descriptions of giants in this book and creatures and things like that, and that's all I'm gonna say about that, because I really want you to be happily surprised like I was, and I hope that you do pick this up, and if you do, let me know and we can talk about it. And if you have picked it up, go ahead and already talk to me down in the comments. Make sure to put your little spoiler warning, hit enter a couple times or space a couple times, whatever, so that other people are not spoiled before being able to read it, and let me know what you thought. And thank you so much. God bless. Thank you so much for coming and watching me. Yep. Peace. I guess it's 2012.